Welcome to part 4 of Freedom and Natural Law. Before I begin with part 4, I just want to say that all of this knowledge, I've said this before, but I'm going to be persistent in talking about this. All of this knowledge is not mine. The words that I use, the images, all of it is just depicting something that is wordless. It is representing something. All symbols, all words are representing something that is beyond words. So none of this knowledge is my own. I don't claim ownership over this knowledge. I am simply relaying a message that I have received, that I've come to understand within myself and about the world. I'm relaying a message in this presentation, my own unique expression. I'm sharing my gifts. This is what I came here to do. So don't get held up on the words. Don't get held up on the definitions. Don't get held up. Just feel the message. Feel the overall energy of what is attempting to be shaken inside of you. This whole presentation is designed to help you to not only free your mind, but if you have already freed your mind, to come to a deeper understanding of how reality works, yourself and how reality works. Natural law isn't the principle of vibration, the principle of mentalism, etc. You have to reach beyond those words. You have to feel the truth of what they are and witness them yourself beyond words. I can't stress the importance enough of looking beyond the words and feeling. That's why I started this presentation with feeling, using your feelings to understand anything in life. You have to use your feelings. But before you can do that, you have to remove what blocks you from feeling. You have to remove the trauma and the demons and the shadows. You have to integrate them. You have to heal them before you can actually truly feel, integrate true feeling. So here we go. The law of freedom. Freedom and morality are directly proportional. The law of freedom states, as morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. This is the law of freedom. True freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism, which is the idea that there is no inherent and objective difference between right and wrong. So humanity may arbitrarily create or decide what right and wrong is for themselves. And a lot of people are moral relativists in this world. They have no idea that there is an objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior, and right actions and wrong actions. There are inherent and objective differences between right and wrong. So true freedom can never exist in a society that embraces moral relativism. We get to make up what right and wrong are. We get to decide what right and wrong are. No such thing. No one gets to decide that. So let's look at the difference between man's law and natural law. Man's law being government, where all legislation is signed, where all these illusory laws are created. And before I even go any further, the other day I was contemplating the existence of the illusion of government, and an image formed in my mind's eye of a parasite in each country, on each country, at each plane of the world. A parasite, just umbrella, it's like an umbrella, like a tick, just sucking those societies dry of their life essence, of their life force, just sucking it dry. And it's not like the parasite even comes forcibly, because it doesn't. The parasite has its minions convince us and manipulate us through subliminal programming, through TV shows, through endless slews of propaganda, social media, etc. The education system, it manipulates us into believing in it. It manipulates us to give our energy to it. We are willingly giving our power away to systems of control. We are willingly giving our energy to other people, other beings, because we believe we have no power. So it's like the parasites are sucking these countries. Government is a parasite, and these parasites are in different forms, seemingly different forms, all over the world, all over the planet. These governments exist, and they're just sucking their societies dry of their lifeblood, of their life essence. And we allow it to happen. We not only allow it to happen, we willingly give our energy to the parasites. We do. And again, natural law doesn't see, oh, he's just manipulated. Oh, forgive him. Don't give him the consequences for his actions because he's being manipulated. No, natural law doesn't see that. Natural law is engraved in the fabric of existence. It's indifferent. It is indifferent. You act in a certain way, you receive an equivalent result back or consequence back. So it doesn't matter if you're manipulated. It doesn't matter if you're willingly You're ignorant. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We create our own reality. We create our shared reality. And if you haven't watched the show or the movie The Dark Crystal, go watch that show and movie. Go watch the show first and then the movie. The movie's older, but the show depicts so clearly what is taking place in this world. Go watch it. I highly suggest it. So let's look at natural law versus man's law. All right, natural law is based upon principles and truth, and natural law is inherent to creation. Natural law can only be harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding, gaining knowledge of what natural law is and understanding it by living it in your life, applying it to your life, watching it play out like a science. You're observing its effects in the world. You're observing its existence in your own life and the life around you, which you are not separate from. Natural law is universal. It exists and applies anywhere in the universe, regardless of location. Regardless of location throughout the entire universe, natural law applies to beings with the capacity to realize the principles of natural law. If you have the capacity, the potential, if there is a potential for you to be able to live in alignment with these laws, your actions are governed by natural law. Natural law is eternal and immutable. It exists and applies for as long as the universe exists and cannot be changed. And that's what the system of control is attempting to do. If you look at it, they're trying to play God. They're trying to alter natural law. They're trying to diminish natural law and get around it by all costs, by having us do their dirty work. They have humans in society do their dirty work, do their bidding for them. The beings behind the control system, behind the curtain, the ones pulling the strings for real, don't really do anything themselves besides put out ideas and tactics to manipulate the population because they understand natural law. And man's law is based upon dogmatic beliefs or constructs of the mind. Man's law is based off beliefs that have been hammered into our mind since birth. Even before birth, since in the womb, we've been hammered these beliefs. In utero, you are greatly impressed. Your mind is greatly impressed in utero. Your physiology, your cells, your DNA, your genetic code is altered based off how you are raised in the womb, in utero. That's for another video. Natural law, all you can do is become aware of natural law. It's not something to latch onto. It's not something to attach yourself to. People do it. People attach themselves to the idea of natural law. But natural law is not the idea. It's not the concept. It's not the word. It's not the principles. It transcends that all. So you have to feel it. You have to feel natural law's presence in your life. Look at your past. Look at all the causes and effects in your life. Look at where you were at. Look at your traumas. Look at the resultants. Look at your life now. Look at your life now. Man's law is complied with due to fear of punishment. And that's ultimately what it comes down to when it comes to man's law. People only comply because they have a fear of death, fear of being punished. And this stems from childhood. This stems from being raised in a household where you're fearing, regardless if it's physical punishment, psychological punishment, whatever. I'd say 99% of households abuse their children in some type of way. So man's law can only be complied with due to fear of punishment. Man's law differs with location based upon the whim of legislators, which is moral relativism. So, for example, an example of this is certain plants, like marijuana, for instance, is legal where I live here in Michigan. It's legal. It's completely legal and decriminalized. But if I go and hop an imaginary line and enter another state, then all of a sudden I can be thrown in jail and fined for having a plant. That's moral relativism. That is called playing God. That is called people thinking that they're God and they can choose what people can and cannot put into their body. And man's law changes with time based upon the whim of legislators. Moral relativism, again, it changes with time based off how people feel, what they want people to do. Oh, I don't want people drinking orange juice anymore. I don't want people eating, whatever food anymore. I can just choose. I can just do that. I don't want people using certain magazines in their rifles and their pistols and their firearms anymore. I'm going to ban this certain type of knife, this certain type of this certain type of that, because I think I have the right to do so. Because I've given myself the right to do so. Nope. Can never happen. Can never happen. Doesn't matter if the highest being in the universe from the Pleiadian star system that is just so enlightened comes down and says, you can create what a right is and what a wrong is for yourself and impose that on other people. Nope, can never happen throughout the entire universe. Can never happen. You need to understand this. This goes directly against popular belief. So, what does this mean for man's law? This is where simple if-then logic comes into play. It's very useful here. If a particular man-made law is in harmony with natural law, then it follows logically that it is redundant, since it is stating a truth that is inherent, pre-existing, and self-evident. Therefore, it is both irrelevant and unnecessary. So, if some type of legislation or some law says, do not murder, well, yeah, no shit. Anyone with any capacity to feel or sense or living in this planet would know that. It's common sense. Not murdering somebody should be common sense. Not stealing from another being should be common sense. So when an individual, when a legislator or some person, Congress or whatever, states a law or writes down a law, says you cannot murder, it's redundant and unnecessary, and it's completely irrelevant. We don't need some guy or some girl or some legislator telling us not to murder one another and then imposing a punishment on that. No, the universe takes care of itself. We take care of ourselves. Everything plays out exactly how it's supposed to based off of how people act in the world, how people think, and how people act in the world. The system works perfectly. Not the control system. I'm talking about the universe works perfectly. Natural law works perfectly. We don't need armed thugs capturing and raping and stealing and doing whatever to prevent rapists and murderers and thieves to be out in the streets. By them imposing those laws creates resistance. It creates rebellion against the laws, which is another, in a sense, it can be a positive thing, but for the most part, it creates resistance to where people enact those acts of violence. They inevitably act in the ways that they are being told not to. They're not provided the opportunity to learn from their mistakes, to experience life on their own terms. So if man's law is in harmony with natural law, it is completely irrelevant and unnecessary. Natural law could also be called common sense. Common sense laws. If a particular man-made law is in opposition to natural law, then it follows logically that it is both false or incorrect and immoral or harmful, or in other words, wrong. Therefore, it cannot be legitimately binding upon anyone. No one can be bound by any immoral law, no matter what you believe, no matter what we believe. The only laws that we follow, or we not even follow, we live in alignment with, should be the laws of nature. The principles of natural law are the only laws in all of creation, in all of existence, that we should be living and abiding by. In light of natural law, man's law is irrelevant and unnecessary. And you like the little crumpling up effect that I put there? Crumple government up and throw it away. It's an illusion. It doesn't even exist. And it can never exist. In nature, government and authority can never exist. All right. Government. What government means, the word government means. It comes from the Latin verb gubernare, which means to control, and the Latin noun mens, which means mind. So, government means, literally, government, the word government means mind control. That's all government is mind control. It's mind control. If you control the mind, you control the behavior, you control the reality. Authority, or jurisdiction, from the Latin noun juris, which means law, and the Latin verb dictere, which means to speak and to say. Thus, jurisdiction literally means to say what the law is. No one can say what the law is in this context. In this context, what I'm speaking about, no one can say what the law is. I can't say, all right, you see this rock right here? You see this rock that I have? No one's allowed to have rocks like this anymore. The smooth rocks that are approximately 1.5 inches long and 1 inch wide. No one is allowed to have any 1.5 by 1 inch rocks anymore in their house, or else they'll get fined or even thrown in jail. That's how ridiculous man's law is. No one has the right to say what law is. Law is inherent to creation. It's objective. It exists. It's immutable. And all we can do is witness and observe and live in alignment with these laws. And that takes removing this belief system in authority, the belief in government, the belief in a higher power that's separate from you, a belief in anything that thwarts your progress in consciousness and keeping you blinded from natural law, from who you are, from your true nature as a spiritual being in a physical body. I'm not talking about human nature. But that's important too, to understand human nature as a programmable being. We're in programmable bodies. So authority is an illusion stemming from a diseased psyche based entirely in violence and built upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief that some people are masters who have the moral right to issue commands and others are slaves who have a moral obligation to obey the masters. That's what it is. Authority is an illusion. It can never exist in reality. If you believe in authority, you have a diseased, broken psyche, and you need to get away from your smartphone. You need to turn the news off. You need to spend some time with yourself in silence and really look at yourself and dive deep into your being and purge out these belief systems. Right now. Right now. Authority is slavery. To sum it all up, in one word, the definition of authority is slavery. Just like government. Government is slavery. Authority is slavery. When you believe that another individual has the right to rule over you, which is what it comes down to, you believe and condone in slavery. Therefore, you hurt not only yourself, but your fellow human being. This topic gets me fired up. There's nothing that gets me more fired up. Exposing the darkness, specifically the government and authority, the idea of authority. It is the literal definition of being unsane. You are unsane. You are not sane. You are not using your brain. You are not using your body. You are not using your soul, your spirit. You have no soul, or you have a very broken soul. You have no connection to spirit. If you believe in authority, you have no connection. You have severed your connection to spirit. I don't care how enlightened you think you are. I don't care how many followers you have on YouTube. I don't care how many people subscribe to your shit. If you believe in the legitimacy of authority, you are cut off from your spirit. The belief in the legitimacy of authority is the belief in the legitimacy of slavery. Ultimately, authority is the idea that man can become God and, through jurisdiction, dictate the law. And this is what government thinks that it is. And now, again, there's no such thing as government. You can't talk to government. You can't interact with government. All you can do is interact with government representatives, people that say they represent government. But what is government? It's an illusion. It's a mental construct designed to keep us enslaved, to keep us from knowing who we are, to keep us from knowing natural law. So man can never become God individually. I'm speaking about individually. Yes, we are all aspects of the Creator, of God. But no one man is God. No one man or being in the universe is or can ever be God. We all have an equal share, an equal part of God. All we can do is tap into that creative essence, that creative life force, that infinite consciousness, and allow it to flow through us. That's it. Religion. Religion comes from the Latin verb religare, which means to tie back, to hold back, to thwart from forward progress, and to bind. It's a cage for your mind. Mainstream religion is a cage for your mind. Again, there's many nuggets of gold in religion, but ultimately religion has been turned into or originally designed to cage your mind. Religion is a system of control based in unchallenged dogmatic belief, which holds back the progress and evolution of consciousness. The true meaning of religion is to bind oneself back to nature, to hold oneself in harmony with natural law. Religion means to be holistically developed and intelligent, to exercise conscience and to love oneself and others, to thwart from forward progress into corruption and immorality. This is what the true meaning of definition is. This is what true religion is. true religion. Like when you hear Krishnamurti speak about religion, he's not talking about dogmatic, institutionalized, and mainstream and organized religion. Like 99.9999% of religion, what religion has turned into. He's talking about to hold oneself back in harmony with natural law and who we are. Hold oneself back in awareness, to observe and remember who we are. In this sense, we have to become truly religious, not the fake-ass religions that are out there, not the fake false form of religion. We have to be able to see through what the mainstream religions are trying to get us to do and see what they're trying to get us not to do. See what mainstream religions are trying to get us not to do. If it says, you can never be God, God is separate from you, believe in an external higher power, believe in something outside of you, that's exactly what they want you to do. And the number one religion in this world now is government. That's it. The number one religion in the world today is government. It's the belief in authority. It's the belief that other people have the right to rule over you and oppress you and tell you what to do with your own life. So that's the number one religion. So you do the opposite. Like Matt from Quantum of Conscious talks about, if they tell you to do something, you do the opposite. If they suggest you to do something, you do the opposite. And that can be applied to multiple areas in life. So if they tell you you're not God, you're probably God. You're probably a extension of God. You yourself are not God. I myself am not God, but I am a portal for God's energy to flow through, as everybody is on the entire planet, if they open up that channel, if they allow the energy to flow through them. All right, order followers. Mahatma Gandhi said, an unjust law is itself a species of violence. Arrest for its breach is more so. So an unjust law, an immoral law, is in itself a species of violence. Arrest for its breach is more so. So just by those laws existing, what Gandhi is saying here is an act of violence. Just by believing that they can exist is an act of violence. No one wants to hear this, but it's true. If you believe that an unjust law can exist and a moral law can exist, that is an act of violence. And arrest for its breach is even more so. And again, before I go any further, I want to stress once more, the words are not important. It's the message I'm relaying here. It's the message I am relaying here. Feel this energy thoroughly, and understand where I'm coming from with this. An order follower describes members of the police, military, and any government official or authority who carries out the orders of the government. The biggest problem in this world are not the ones giving the orders and commands. The biggest problem in the world are the ones who obey those orders and commands. So the biggest problem in the world are not the order givers, the ones signing the legislation. It's the ones that are enacting and initiating the actions in the world. These individuals are the biggest problem in the world. It's us in mainstream society and our belief in these systems, because without our belief, they wouldn't exist. Without our believing in these systems that they can exist, without our life force, our life essence, our energy, they cannot exist. Military and police cannot and will not and can never exist without us creating it. Ultimately, the order followers, the ones who take action on the orders, the ones who carry out those orders and take action in the world according to those orders, are the biggest threats to existence, are the biggest threats here on earth, the order followers. But I would say that we are just as much of a problem, because we ultimately, the collective masses and the aggregate of humanity, are the ones who believe in these systems and therefore prop the systems up. We are the foundation. We're the foundation. Think of it as like a 3-story building. We are not even the bottom floor, the first floor. We are the bottom floor that holds the whole building up. If we let go, if we dissolve, our energy is that foundation. If we withdraw our energy, the whole building collapses. It can't stand on its own. We prop up the building. We prop up the order followers. We prop up authority. We prop up the government. Following orders means doing what you are told without judging or thinking for yourself whether or not the action you are being ordered to carry out is right or wrong. If an individual is following orders, that individual cannot be exercising conscience or common sense. Since, by definition, exercising conscience means that one is willfully choosing for themselves right action over wrong action. So these individuals, this individual right here, caught in the act with this picture, is not exercising conscience, has no self-awareness, is just following orders for a paycheck, following immoral orders for a paycheck. And now, yeah, the person's willingly giving their purse up. The person's willingly giving their body up to be stroked and patted down in the TSA example. But the government enacts it. If everyone stopped obeying this and stopped saying, fuck that, I'm not going to fly then. Fuck it, I'm not going to fly. Well, guess what? The system would collapse. These people are exercising no conscience whatsoever just by being in the role that they're being in, just by the fact that they are in these roles and are working these jobs. Contrary to popular belief, when someone is just following orders, regardless of what those orders consist of, the order follower is always the one responsible for the exercising of those actions. Now listen to me clearly here. For those of you that are not familiar with this work, familiar with these concepts, familiar with this truth, take the time, pause the presentation, and really study this. Just really listen to what I'm saying here. When someone is just following orders, regardless of what those orders consist of, the order follower is always responsible for the exercising of those actions. We are responsible for our actions, no matter who told us to do something or who asked us to do something. We are responsible for those actions. We have been thoroughly conditioned to believe that when we are asked or ordered to do something, we magically escape the responsibility and consequences of the actions we carry out. This is wrong and can never be right, regardless of circumstance. Regardless of the circumstance, we never avoid the effects or consequences of our actions just because someone asked or told us to do something. The order follower is always the one who will face the consequences of the actions they express, since they are the ones taking the physical action in the world. The order follower is always responsible for his or her actions, no matter what is requested or demanded of them. Everyone is responsible for their own actions. And people do not want to hear this. Largely, people do not want to hear this. You watching this right now, you are responsible for your actions. I am responsible for every action I take in the world. I am responsible for my own actions. You are responsible for your own actions. Regardless of if you know it or not, every single human being on the planet is responsible for themselves and their own actions. As long as we are blindly following the orders of others, we will never know freedom. I am speaking now to anyone in which this applies, not just the military and the police, because they're not the only order followers. We are the order followers as well. Although the military and police are the two most direct, brute enforcers of slavery, which makes them the biggest threat to freedom in the world, statists are the ones who keep the control system intact in the first place. Without the energy and permission of the people, these systems would not and could not exist. All these statists here in this crowd looking at this joke, this piece of trash, this persona, it's probably not even a human. It's like I don't even know what, slime sludge monster just packed in a physical body. It's probably got a microchip in his brain just being remote controlled by some other being. So you got all these statists believing in the legitimacy of a master, voting for a master, a puppet. Ultimately, it's a puppet. Not one of these people in this crowd are responsible for themselves, when we know that everyone's responsible for themselves and their own actions and their own thoughts and everything else, regardless of what they think, regardless of what they believe in. We are all responsible and sovereign beings. But all of these people actively giving their responsibility away to a master, to a ruler, to rule over them. And in exchange, they get slavery. So without our energy, these systems would not and could not ever exist. They couldn't. The control system can send as many minions as it wants to try to compel us and coerce us and threaten us with whatever punishment if we don't conform. But guess what? As long as we don't back down, they'll go away. They will go away. They will dissolve and they will go away. They might find another planet or another star system, whatever, to corrupt. But we won't have it. As soon as we're not taking it anymore. If we're not taking it anymore, we're not believing in this anymore. We stand up for what is right no matter what. they would leave. They would dissolve. Statism. Let's get into what statism is. The right to freedom being the gift of God, it is not the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. It's not even in the power of man to alienate this gift, to give away this gift and voluntarily become a slave. I'll go as far as saying you don't have the right to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. You don't have the right to give away your freedom. You don't have that right. You don't have the right to give away your self-responsibility. You don't even have the right to do that. And Larkin Rose, the author of The Most Dangerous Superstition, which is one of the greatest books written of all time about the illusory nature of authority and government, he said, "I'm not scared of the Maos and the Stalins and the Hitlers. I'm scared of the thousands of millions of people that hallucinate them to be authority and so do their bidding and pay for their empires and carry out their orders. I don't care if there's one loony with a stupid mustache. He's not a threat. If the people do not believe in authority," again, that's it. If people don't believe in authority, and people withdraw their energy from these systems, they are not a threat. They can't do anything to us. They will have to leave. They'll keep trying to find new ways to manipulate us and control us. But if we're not backing down, and if we have enough knowledge and understanding and wisdom, and we know ourselves deep enough, the authority can never exist. Government can never exist. A statist is an individual who erroneously believes that there is such thing as authority, vested in certain human beings, magically giving them the right to rule over other people. This authority means that certain people who we call government have the moral right to issue commands to those whom they rule, those under their jurisdiction, and that their subjects or slaves have a moral obligation to obey the arbitrary dictates, laws, set by their masters. Most simply put, a statist is someone who believes in the legitimacy of slavery. Statism has been so hammered and engraved, like in granite, like stone, so hammered into the minds of humanity. And it went to the subconscious mind, now it's a subconscious programmed, and now it's just residing in the unconscious. We're just completely oblivious. These people who believe in authority, people that just live their life, we just pay our taxes and we just obey authority, we just pay our parking tickets and we vote for a master. And like people, they see nothing wrong at all with it. They live in some other realm. It's incredible. So pause the slide, study this. If this is new to you, study this. This is very important to understand here, what statism is. Statism, the brilliant idea that we give a small group of people the right to kidnap, steal from, and kill us so that we can be protected from people who kidnap, steal from, and kill us. Right. And then I like this image I found on the internet, the religion of statism. So it has sacred symbols and texts like we the people, the Constitution, and etc., the flag, our flag, the United States flag, or whatever country you live in, the deities, the presidents, the masters, or they're just puppets, but you know what I'm saying. The crusades, the military personnel, the order followers, the ones who act in the world, who follow the orders, who carry out those orders in the world, the mystic rituals, voting, signing legislation, signing a new idea into law, signing a new dictate into law. It's a joke. It's a sick joke. Common prayer. What did we do when we were in school? The Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States. The Pledge of Allegiance. Common prayer. Temples and monuments. The giant phallus, the Washington Monument. Temples and monuments. Church leadership inside a government building. Churches, which are schools. The schools being the churches. To believe in the religion of statism. It's a dogmatic belief where it's just aggressively and constantly and persistently pumped into your mind. And then human sacrifice and worship. Statism. Ideas so good, they have to be mandatory. Yeah, great ideas. If they have to be mandatory, it's a great idea. What a great idea. All right. Anarchy. Let's get into what anarchy means. The word anarchy comes from the Greek prefix an, without, the absence of, and the Greek noun archon, which means master and ruler. Anarchy does not mean without rules. like a lot of people think because of movies and Hollywood, that anarchy means without rules and just chaos. No, anarchy is the opposite of chaos. It's a classic inversion. So anarchy does not mean without rules. Anarchy literally means without rulers, without masters. So anarchy is the state of existence where there are no masters and no slaves. Therefore, anarchy means the absence of slavery, or in other words, freedom. Anarchy translates to freedom, ultimately. So anarchy equals freedom. Control tactics. Let's get into some of the tactics they use to control the population, to manipulate the population, to hypnotize, and the spell casting tactics, the way they cast their spell on humanity. Through TV, through all these different sources, but let's get into it. Let's explore it a little bit. The psychologist Eric Fromm said, most people are not even aware of their need to conform. They live under the illusion that they follow their own ideas and inclinations, that they are individualists, that they have arrived at their opinions as a result of their own thinking, and that it just happens that their ideas are the same as those of the majority. This is where most people are at. I probably said that like 100 times in this presentation. That's where most people are at. This is where most people are at. This is the human condition, because it's true. Most people have no idea that their ideas, their inclinations, their desires, their urges aren't even their own. They're programs inside of your mind. They have been embedded inside of you from in utero. From in utero, you've been conditioned to act in a certain way and think in a certain way. You are predictable. They know exactly what you're going to do, your next move, because they installed the programs inside of you. And you allowed the programs to enter you. Maybe not in childhood, but when you're an adult, when you start to mature, it's your responsibility to see the program. It's your responsibility to take in the knowledge, to dissolve the programs, have the awareness to dissolve the programs, to realize I have programs, I have toxic programs embedded in my mind. How can I get these out? So everyone's ideas, everyone's thinking is exactly like everybody else's. Everyone's doing the same stuff. Everyone's working the same slave job. Everyone's feeding the same slave system. Everyone's sending their kids to school. Everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's on the same program. They might like different sports teams. They might like, different foods. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean you're unique in any way. It doesn't. You're just the same as everybody else until you wake up and you understand who you are and you understand natural law and you live your life in that way and you allow the truth to kill yourself. You kill yourself in truth, your old self, your false self, the mask. You take off the mask and do away with it and never put it on again. And each time you do put it on, you watch yourself when you put it on. You say, oh, that didn't feel good. Oh, that didn't feel, because you're watching, you're observing, you're witnessing yourself doing things that go completely against who you are, your true nature, what you're here to do, your spiritual nature. Bob Marley, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. None but ourselves can free our own minds. We can only free our minds. This presentation, the book you read, the podcast you listen to, the information you take in from whatever source, documentary, the TV, whatever, the individual you're speaking with, they cannot free your minds. I cannot free your minds. Only you can do that by taking these tools, taking this knowledge, and allowing it to awaken the knowledge inside of you. Ultimately, this entire presentation and all of my work is speaking to the existing knowledge that lies dormant inside of you, or lies somewhat awake, or lies fully awake inside of you. This knowledge, I'm just pointing at you with. I'm just pointing at you. It's inside of you. It's your responsibility to see it. It's your responsibility to awaken and free your mind and see the programs and see all the ways you've been acting and see all the ways you've been behaving and all of it, all the rest of it. So none but ourselves can free our minds. Mind control. Mind control is the most destructive, sinister, and covert tactic taking place throughout our world. Whoever controls the mind controls reality. Our minds are conditioned and controlled by a satanic priest class who thinks that they are God. These controllers inject into our minds the version of reality they want to see manifest via technology, laws and legislation, politics, religion, education systems, and more. They convince us to create the prison hell for ourselves, while they reap the rewards and can largely avoid the karmic consequences of taking immoral actions required to be carried out to establish a world of slavery. So they get us to do their bidding. They get us to do the dirty work so they can sit back and reap the rewards of having billions of slaves. Whatever rewards they get from that, food, where if they eat the energy, whatever they do with it, they're getting it. They're getting it. They're getting to integrate us into a system of AI. Who knows? Who knows? All I know is they take our energy, they sit back, and they control the masses through all these different avenues. And on top of that, they not only take our energy of fear and worry, all these low vibrational frequencies, but they get us to create and manifest the reality that they want to see created. And they just sit back and say, I don't do anything. All I have to do is put ideas out there. All I got to do is say, I want this to happen. And then they inject it into the news and the media outlets because they control everything. They control everything. They are behind the scenes in Hollywood, media, all of it, medical industry, pharmaceutical industries, food industries. They're behind it all. Military, government, okay? So they just put ideas out there. They just inject ideas, and their minions do the dirty work. Their minions from the top down. And ultimately, we're the most abundant minions that they have. Our energy is fueling every manifestation in the world. Our energy is fueling every single manifestation in the entire world. Human beings' thoughts largely derive from subliminal and subconscious programs designed by the control system to captivate our consciousness and shuttle it into the concepts the system wants us to think about. In other words, they convince us consciousness, because we are consciousness at our core. You can call it what you want. I prefer to call it infinite consciousness or infinite awareness. So they convince us, consciousness, this spiritual being, that this reality is what they say it is. And if we cannot see this happening, we become entranced by the spell that says this version of reality is real when there's nothing real about it. So we get entranced and become captivated by the illusion, the physical reality. We start to think in separation. We start to think that my fellow man and woman around us is separate. The animal, the plant, the tree, this world is separate from us. And when we start thinking in separation, we start thinking only from the ego. We start to break our psyche. Our psyches decay, break, and become diseased. We start breeding fear, worry, doubt, anxiety, and ultimately suffering. Now, suffering can be a good thing. Suffering is a good thing if you know how to use it and you know how to see it, and if you understand suffering's true role in life. But when consciousness, what you are, starts to forget their purpose for coming into this experience, this human experience, they get entranced and then they feed the system because they think that this is all there is. This physical reality, all this is all there is. I use this rock as an example because it's just right here. Okay? And when consciousness is aware of the program and starts to withdraw and starts to observe and see, oh, wait, I think there's something more than this. I feel that there's something more than this. Through enough suffering, usually, people need to suffer to realize this stuff. And that's what most people don't want to hear either. People don't want to hear that they have to suffer and learn how to suffer to be able to free themselves. And then here in this image, he removed his brain, slapped it on a table, and he was replacing it with a government expert. This is the case for most of humanity, once again. The first principle of natural law states, the all is mind, everything is mental. This means everything which manifests in our reality is brought into manifestation through the mind. Whoever controls the mind controls reality. If we do not have awareness of the mind, then we will remain prisoners of the mind, or mental prisoners. No problem in the world can be solved by the mind. What I mean by this is you can't solve a mental problem with the mind, just like you can't solve a physical problem with anything physical. Physical problems are alleviated by changing your mind, which is alleviated by being aware of the programs in the mind. So I'm going to get into this later in the presentation, but physical reality, mental world, the mental reality, and then awareness. You have to have awareness of the mind and of the physical reality. If you have this full spectrum awareness, then you can solve any problem in the world because the problem solves itself before it even arises as a problem. The problem solves itself before it even manifests as a problem when you are living in awareness. You have to be aware of the mind and of the physical experience. I think Albert Einstein said, no problem can be solved with the same level of consciousness that created it. That's similar to this. You can't remain on the same level of consciousness as you did when you created the problem in the first place. You have to raise your level of consciousness slightly or significantly to solve the problem that you suffer from. That takes learning from your experiences, learning from your mistakes, suffering and learning how to suffer. I call it being purified by fire. That's where hell comes in. Hell is an important aspect of this experience. We have to learn to harness the flames of hell, not allow them to burn us alive. And when they do burn us, we learn, we grow, so we don't get burnt again. Behavior control. If the mind is under control, then behavior is controlled. It is controlled. If your mind is under control, your behavior is controlled. Most of humanity may think their behavior is genuine and authentic. They may think that their actions are coming from their own wants and desires, but the truth is, functioning through a state of unconsciousness, all of our wants, desires, passions, and motives stem from thoughts which the control system has carefully planted into our minds. This is the truth. Most people think that all their wants, desires, actions, all their actions are their own. They made up their mind. No, your mind was made up for you because you didn't exercise your mind properly. You didn't think about anything yourself because that takes awareness. That takes consciousness being aware of itself. Most people are not in that state. Most people are consciousness trapped in illusion. That's where most people are at. So they can't see anything. So whatever an external force says they need to do or believe in or like or whatever, they follow. They just follow. That's why they have been considered, most of humanity has been called the name zombie. They have been called zombies because they're a lot like zombies. If you never awakened, you never understood who you were, you never took a breath of fresh air in a state of consciousness, true consciousness, and understanding that you're connected to everything, you never lived a day in your life. From cradle to grave, you were already dead. If you never woke up and understood who you were and how this reality works, you are already dead. Because living implies awareness. Living implies consciousness, becoming aware of itself. That's living. That's true living. Can't tell me that you're living if you have no idea who the hell you are and you think that you're still separate from other people. All right, the freedom program. Goethe said, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. I'm sure you've heard that before. It's true. If you think you're free, you will forever remain enslaved. You have to understand you're a slave first to free yourself. The freedom program. We cannot truly live without freedom. This is a fact. We can't. To live means to be free. Nevertheless, the term or idea of freedom is also used as a program. Freedom is a state which the control system knows humanity can never achieve without a wide-scale transformation in consciousness on an individual level. The system propagates the idea of freedom as something to long and strive for, to keep us from actually ever achieving it. Therefore, the freedom program serves more as a distraction than a tool for liberation. And that's what the system does. It's so good at just going along with our base instincts, going along with our spiritual desires, our what we're passionate about. You know, most people thirst for freedom. They hunger for freedom. And they just go right along with it. Oh, land of the free. Oh, be free. This free. They use the term free. And it's a program. It's just a big program. An example of that is join the military to fight for your freedom. It's bullshit. It's an inversion. The freedom program is an extremely efficient tool the control system uses to keep people from ever realizing that they are slaves. One of the greatest tricks they use is to convince the people that they are free, so they stay blinded to the truth of their enslavement. As long as humanity believes they are free, they will forever remain enslaved. America, land of the free. Yeah, right. That's why I put it in quotations. There's nothing further from the truth. If anything, America is the most covertly mind-controlled aggregate of people on the planet. And once you wake up and see the program, it's overt. You see it. You see it. It's so obvious. You start to read the matrix code. It's so obvious. The control system uses the concept of freedom as bait, hooking our minds by providing us the illusion of life purpose. It sucks in those of us who see the system for what it is by getting us to identify with freedom as a concept separate from ourselves, something to be achieved. Although on one level, it is definitely healthy to be driven by a passion to establish and live in freedom. If individuals are only attaching the idea of freedom to their egos, not understanding with awareness what exactly freedom implies, then we are not actively moving into a state of freedom. So in other words, if we are attaching the idea of freedom to us, to our minds, to our egos, we cannot establish freedom. Freedom is not a future goal. Freedom is a present moment state of being. You have to exist in a state of internal freedom to manifest external freedom. You can't be in the mindset of, oh, I'm not free, but let me go chase freedom some future time. No, I realize that physically and most people spiritually and within themselves are completely enslaved. Their mind is completely under mind control. But when you know that freedom must be established because that's our birthright, when you understand freedom, you have to understand that you can't attach, because this is where they get you. This is where they get us wrapped up, especially the truth seekers in the world. They get you wrapped up into thinking as freedom as a futuristic goal, as some type of, as something that is separate from you, as separate from us, when it's not. Freedom is us. It is our inherent state of being. So we have to understand that we are freedom. Freedom does not happen at some future time. It happens right now. Freedom happens right now, where you stand, where you sit. That's where freedom happens. You free yourself psychologically within yourself. You free yourself spiritually. And then you help others to, you plant seeds in others and help others to do the same. The program of freedom keeps us from understanding that freedom is an immediate state of being. Freedom is not a mental construct to attach ourselves to, as so many are attached to. So many are attached to the idea of freedom. Freedom is not an idea. It's not a word. It's a state of being that transcends words, just like love, just like sovereignty, just like natural law. You have to align yourself with that energy. Don't attach yourself to the idea or the image of it. You can use your imagination to imagine that state of existence into being. That is useful, using it with awareness. But do not think in terms of, I'm a slave and I must chase freedom. No, you have to sit with, I am a slave, to see the key out of slavery, which first is freeing yourself internally. And then externally, you will inevitably be acting to create a world of freedom. That's how it works. And this can be a little bit harder to understand because the deeper you go in words, the deeper you go into psychology and these types of things, they're very hard to articulate and they're very hard to understand. They can be very hard to understand. Don't try to understand it with your mind. Mind can't wrap itself around truth or freedom. You can have ideas, it can have thoughts about it, but it can't capture it. It can't capture it. Only you can capture it, which what you are is awareness. All you can do is feel it. So just read it, sit with it, and allow it to soak in. The seed will be planted, and then you water that seed through your actions, through the way you carry yourself, through reading books, through having conversations like I talked about earlier on in the presentation. All right, freedom from conditioning. Here's the eyes again. Here's the awareness eyes again. Living in awareness is freedom from conditioning. When we live in a state of awareness, we step back and watch the conditioned aspects of our minds play out. We watch our thoughts and use our minds carefully. We start to use conditioning without becoming captivated by the egoic mental spell. We start driving the vehicle of conditioning in mind instead of allowing it to drive us. We stop attaching ourselves to conditioning. The way to be free from all conditioning is to watch and observe all conditioning. The way we think, talk, act, feel, dress, see, etc. Who was the watcher of all conditioning? Pure, unconditioned awareness, which is what we are at our core. So freedom is freedom from all conditioning. certain levels of conditioning have a positive aspect. You need some certain level of conditioning to drive a car, to eat your food. I mean, you have to have a certain level of conditioning to read these words, okay? But to be completely captivated by that conditioning and your consciousness infused with that conditioning, as in, it's like your eyes, your face is up pressed against a wall and you can't see anything outside of you. You have to take a step back and see it. So you have to watch yourself. You have to watch the conditioning. You have to watch the conditioning, the thoughts, all the whole drama, the whole play out. You have to watch it. This is us. This is us. Ultimately, this is us behind the screen. We watch the conditioning. I'm not saying that you remove all conditioning. Now, most conditioning, yes, you need to remove. The mind needs to be free. It needs to be pliable. It needs to be open. It needs to be fully energized and awake and alert and fresh. Ultimately, it has to be fresh in every single moment. To have a fresh mind in every moment, spontaneous, free, it's to be free of all conditioning. And when there is conditioned aspects that do come up, you watch them. You watch them. You watch them. Conditioning manifests in actions. Conditioning manifests in emotions. Watch. You just watch it. You watch it. That's freedom. That's when you start to establish freedom within yourself. When you realize that you are the awareness watching the experience. All right, responsibility. This is a big one. It's an important one. Freedom implies responsibility. We must live in a state of self-responsibility or sovereignty and realize that we are solely responsible for ourselves. Whether we know it or not, we are self-responsible beings from birth, and never can we give our inherent sovereignty away, nor can it ever be taken from us. Understanding this for ourselves is one of the very first steps we must take to reinstate our power and create a world of freedom. We got to make friends with ourselves, be responsible for ourselves, be responsible for our shadow, be responsible for the ancestral trauma, be responsible for all the trauma. It's what it takes. Being responsible for your actions, being responsible for what you think, being responsible for how you feel. It's what it takes. We have to do this to create a world of freedom. We have to do this to initiate balance in the world. So, like earlier, that guy running away from a shadow, we got to turn around and embrace the shadow. Embrace the shadow. The shadow is not our enemy. It's only our enemy if we think it to be so. It's not our enemy. It is something to embrace and integrate, to be able to use it for good, to use it to reinstate balance and harmony in the world. It's there to teach us a lesson. The shadow is one of the ultimate teachers on the path of truth. Responsibility for our children. The only exception to the principle of self-responsibility is when raising children. This is common sense. This should be common sense. Our children are extensions of ourselves, and we are responsible for their well-being as they grow and mature to a certain ages. It is our responsibility to guide our children to live in truth and in accordance to natural law, and this includes allowing them to express and embody their inherent sovereignty. So we have to teach our children right from wrong, true right from wrong, not man's law, not by beating them, not by abusing them in any way, by allowing them to grow on their own, by allowing them to express themselves how they're going to, by allowing them to make mistakes, by allowing them to be themselves. That's what it comes down to. Allow them to be themselves. Ask them, why did you come into this world? I'm so curious. Our children will teach us more about life than we will teach them about life if we know how to raise our children properly. And we have to get out of the idea of our children. It's not my child. And that's a big thing right there. It's like one of the first terrible conditioned programs in people's minds is my child or my property. It's not my property. It's not my child. It's not my wife. It's not my girlfriend. It's not my mom. She's not mine. He's not mine. It's not mine. In this mine world, our children are not our own. They are sovereign beings that we are here to help guide and understand natural law and to help understand themselves, to gain knowledge and understanding. So we are responsible for our children's well-being. We are responsible for teaching our children natural law, teaching them about themselves, and most importantly, guiding them and helping them to teach themselves how it all works. Anti-self-responsible. On Earth today, many of us believe that other people somehow have a responsibility to take care of us. Most are conditioned to believe that politicians, governments, relatives, police officers, doctors, other people in general are responsible for us, our health, and our overall well-being. This is one of the biggest lies that has been impressed into our psyches. It is the root of all slavery, thinking other people are responsible for us. We think this way since, honestly, we have not grown more than physically since the second grade. Bunch of big babies. You haven't grown since before the second grade, probably. I might be a little harsh there. You haven't grown since the second grade besides physically. Just because you grew physically doesn't mean you grew in consciousness. You devolved. You knew more in second grade than you know now. Seriously. You know more in first grade than you know now. You knew more from the womb than you know now. Most people knew more about reality and themselves in the womb than they do now. No one's responsible for you. You're responsible for you. One more time. No one's responsible for you. You are responsible for you and all your shit and all your trauma and all your stuff inside. Take responsibility. Big bodies, infant minds. We are still suckling on the teat of our proxy mothers and obeying the commands of our proxy fathers called government/authority and religion. We still rely on our proxy parents to take care of us. This is the way we have been programmed. Most of us never learned the truth that we are sovereign, self-owning, self-responsible beings and are elaborately trained to give to authority instead of giving to ourselves. Throughout our childhood, most of us were punished for sovereign displays and expressing our authenticity. We are scolded for exercising our true nature and taught not to question. The program goes like this. Obey authority. Do not think for yourself. Be ashamed of yourself. Apologize when you are being yourself. You are a burden. You are an inconvenience. Strive to gain power over others. You are separate and kill or be killed. That's the program. This is the program, ultimately. This is the program. You are separate. You are nothing. The only way to succeed is to go to college, get a good job, get at this, get married, have kids. I mean, it's the whole program. Big bodies, infant minds, because you don't think for yourself. You don't think for yourself. We don't think for ourselves. So our minds are controlled. So we are in I would say, a pre-infant stage mentally. It's beyond infancy. It's just mindlessness. You don't even have a mind. But I know you do because it's under control and you're creating in this reality. Whether you're creating evil or light, you're creating good or evil, you're still creating. It's still a creative act. That's why the system needs you, because they use your creative capacity to fuel their agenda. As we grow older in age, we devolve into lower states of being, which leads to the creation of a persona. A false self we put on display to convince ourselves and others we are something that we are not. If we look around, we can see that the whole of society is largely made up of personas playing pretend. Most of society is made up of people who express psychological infancy. They are functioning through a diseased, broken psyche. This is most people right here. They might be wearing a suit and tie or a nice dress or high heels or fancy this or fancy makeup or drive a big car and a nice shiny car. This is what I see. This is what I see. And this is what you probably see too. If you're watching this presentation and you're familiar with, someone like Mark Passio's work, or you've been doing this work for a while, this is probably what you're starting to see, or you already have been seeing for a while now. Just big babies. Just big old babies. And I'm being blunt. I have to be. And that's a big problem. We're not blunt. We're not blunt anymore. We're not just calling each other out. We need to call each other out. People need to feel that. People need to feel that their own shit. They need to feel the wrath of being attached to belief systems that are not good, that are immoral, that lead to immoral behaviors and immoral actions in the world. We need to call each other out. We need to say, that's wrong. You're talking all this shit, that's wrong. Or you're talking about, how you went and voted and how you went and did this and how you went into that. And you need to just call it out and say it how it is. I mean, we got no more time to be in hiding with this. We have no more time to be, baby stepping and baby spoon feeding all this information to people. We need to just call it out and say it how it is, wherever we're at. wherever we're at, that's wrong. And then the physiological response that them having that belief system engages and triggers, then you could say, feel that. Feel that. You say, that was wrong, or you just call it out, whatever it is, and then you say, feel the emotion. Feel it all the way through. Feel it all the way through. And if they don't want to feel it, whatever. At least you presented them the opportunity to feel something. Most of us just tell people what they want to hear. Most people, even in the truth community, they're a little bit better, but there's not enough of us that are just calling things out and telling it for how it is, saying things for how they are, because they're afraid to hurt people's feelings. But the thing about that is, you can't hurt another person's feelings. I can't hurt your feelings. Only you can hurt your own feelings. No such thing as hurting feelings anyways. Feeling is awareness. Implies an awareness of an emotion or a trigger or a response in the body. By you latching onto that belief system, by you holding those ideologies and seeing the world for how you think it is and what your government says it is and everything else, you are hurting yourself, because the truth will come in and attempt to destroy your beliefs. And what's that going to do? It's going to cause suffering in your being. It's going to cause a really nasty response inside of you. It's going to cause frustration and toxic anger and all these other things. I'm not saying anger is toxic. I'm saying there is a toxic anger unchecked. Anger not transmuted can be toxic. So we need to just start calling things out and telling it how it is, telling it like it is, to provide people the opportunity to grow. That's all you're doing. When you call it out, when you speak the truth, no matter who it is in front of, and they get triggered, they react in a certain way in frustration or anger, or they don't feel good or whatever, you're presenting them a golden opportunity to grow right there. And you know that because you went through it, didn't you? I know I did, and I still go through it. So some of the greatest experiences I've ever had in my entire life was when people called me out of my bullshit. That's what we need to do. Call each other out in our bullshit. Imagination. Neville Goddard, the great Christian mystic, said, "An awakened imagination works with a purpose. It creates and conserves the desirable and transforms or destroys the undesirable." One of the most powerful tools anyone can use to manifest the reality they want to see is the imagination. Imagining absolute widespread balance, harmony, love, truth, freedom, joy, and happiness across the earth can assist in the establishment of those conditions, but not without action. Action is the channel which brings our imagination into being. So imagining a world of freedom, imagining a world of balance, of prosperity, of connection, dismantling the archontic system, dismantling the evil in the world, allowing the evil to dissipate and dissolve. We imagine things into being. We use our imagination. Imagination can be a very, very useful tool to help ourselves and help establish balance and freedom in the world. Positive use of imagination is consciously using it with awareness to bring love and balance to the world. Negative use of imagination is unconsciously using it through ignorance to bring suffering and chaos into the world. So if you're not, again, goes right back with the mind. If you're not using your mind, someone else is using it. If you're not using your own imagination, somebody else is using it. Imagination is the magician that manifests your reality. Imagination, people like Neville Goddard and William Blake have called imagination God. And I can see why they call imagination God, because what you imagine yourself to be, you will inevitably be. As long as you put your will behind that, as long as you put your will behind your imagination, whatever you're imagining will become. It will become a reality. To imagine freedom, we must be able to embrace the possibility of chaos. It seems in today's world, chaos would inevitably have to break out before true freedom can be established. This is due to over 99% of humanity being absolutely ignorant of who they are, natural law, or anything else regarding the truth of the nature of reality. So, to imagine freedom, we must embrace the possibility that chaos might ensue and break out. You can't establish a world of freedom when 50, 60, 70, 80% of the population believes in slavery. How can you? It's not possible. So we have to be able to embrace the possibility of chaos. And I would much, much, much prefer chaos, absolute chaos without government, than a world with supposed order, which is more chaotic than ever, which is more chaotic than any chaos you can imagine. I'd much rather have a world without government and chaos than a world with government and no chaos. By government existing, that breeds chaos, the most sinister forms of chaos. Freedom. The definition of freedom. Noun. The quality or state of being free, such as the absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action. Liberation from slavery or restraint, or from the power of another, or independence, or sovereignty. The quality or state of being exempt or released from something onerous, which means troublesome or oppressive. And these are all great definitions for freedom. These were taken from, I think, the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. They're all great definitions of freedom. They hit the nail on the head. The absence of necessity, coercion, or constraint in choice or action. And all of these go together. They all go together. And then ultimately, freedom is a state of being. Freedom is a state of being. Freedom is every being's immutable, unconditional birthright. Without freedom, we rot and wither away on a physical and soul level. When human beings simultaneously exist in a state of freedom, they do not breathe life into ideas such as government, authority, made-up laws and regulations. There is no room for anything that demands people to violate other beings' natural rights. We choose to exist and live in a state of freedom no matter what the cost, regardless of what the control system is breeding us to become. And what I mean by that is there's some schools of thought that talk about how we have been bred as human beings. We have been bred to be cattle. We have been bred to be slaves. We have been designed, our DNA, our structure has been designed to be slaves. No, freedom is our birthright. We demand, we live freedom no matter what. No matter what, we live in freedom. We understand right and wrong. We understand that a right is any action that does not do harm to another sentient being. That's a right. That's a right. That's everybody's right. And a wrong is any action that does do harm to another sentient being. That's a wrong. If you understand that, you are that much closer. You have to understand that to understand and establish a world of freedom. You have to understand what right is, what a right is, and what a wrong is, what natural law is, and everything else this presentation has provided and continues to provide. The willingness and drive of human beings to do what it takes to become free is virtually non-existent in today's world. We have thousands of distractions daily to keep our attention averted from our potential thirst for something more. The longing ache for freedom, once present in the hearts of our ancestors, has largely been pacified in our own hearts by endless slews of instant gratification, psychological conditioning, and environmental inversions, diversions, and influences. Our attention is solely fixated on trivialities such as money, power, survival, status, sex, and attention, rather than what should be our primary focus: to free ourselves in slavery and create and establish freedom on this planet, on Earth. That should be our number one goal in life: to free ourselves internally, psychologically, spiritually, and to help others to do the same. Freedom within, freedom without. Freedom starts within ourselves. External freedom takes liberating our own minds and hearts on an individual level. It starts with thinking for ourselves and knowing how to think. Freedom implies awareness, pure awareness. If we are not aware that we as individuals function primarily through a massive program which the control system has laid over this reality and planted into our minds, we can never be free. We have to first be aware of the program. We have to be aware of the system of control. We have to be aware of the darkness. We have to be aware of it all. If we are aware of it all, the key lies in that awareness. The key lies in the problem. You can't go from, oh, I'm a slave, I must be free, or just not even realize you're a slave. You can't just say, I need to be free, I need to be free, I need to be free, constantly chasing freedom. You have to first acknowledge the fact that you're a slave. No one wants to admit that. No one wants to look at themselves. No one wants to say, I've been wrong. I've been wrong. I've been acting in immoral ways. I've been abusive. I've been this. I've been that. I've been a slave. I've been asleep. You have to face that fact and not try to escape from it in the things that you think you want. You can't escape from it in a mental construct, and you can't turn these dynamics into mental constructs. You have to realize the fact of the matter. The fact is right now I'm enslaved. The fact is right now I am a terrible person. The fact is right now I've been acting in horrible ways. The fact is right now whatever it is. And then through that understanding that, through just seeing that with awareness, the key, the solution presents itself. The solution presents itself in facing what is. The solution will never present itself by running away from what is into what you think should be. So we have to be aware of the programs, the big, massive program that has been laid over this reality and planted into our minds. We have to be aware of it. We have to acknowledge it. And then through that, the freedom from our condition manifests itself. The key to your chained brain presents itself. Awareness, probably the most important thing you can ever come to understand, is awareness and how the dark occult operates, as I covered in this presentation. Awareness, natural law, and how the dark occult operate. What we as human beings need more than anything right now and forever is awareness. Awareness is the key to freedom. And again, this isn't some new age thing. This isn't some fluffy. This is truth. This is one of the biggest truths in the universe, what we are, who we are. You know, this is a gigantic sacred gem in the New Age movement. Our minds can be fully captivated and conquered by the system. But the moment we are aware, we can see the spell. We can take a step back and see it. We can see the conditioning. We can see the conditioned aspects of our minds, our thoughts, our behaviors. The seeing of the spell in and of itself is the initiating act to dissolve it. Just like I said in the previous slide. The seeing of the fact, of the spell, of the truth is in itself the initiating action to dissolve it. It comes effortlessly, and there's effort in effortlessness. It's one of those paradoxes that may be reconciled in the principle of polarity. This is how the universe works. You look at yourself, you see the fact, I am overweight, I am unhealthy, I am this, I am that. The key, the answer, the solution lies in the problem itself. The solution is not separate from the problem. So we have to realign ourselves in this picture. You have to realign yourself and reconnect with what you are. The human condition cannot be alleviated by the mind. Misuse of the mind is what created the problem in the first place. The human condition can only be alleviated through the mind. Only through the mind can we create all the things we say we want. Only through the mind. This takes awareness and can be accomplished no other way. So awareness flows through mind into physical reality. It manifests itself in reality. So, like I said earlier, if you're functioning from thought, primarily only thought, with no heart, with no connection to spirit, to no connection to awareness, you breed chaos and strife and struggling. Awareness flows through the mind to create. You function through the mind, not from the mind. It doesn't start, nothing starts from the mind. And a lot of people, it does. But the truth, to understand the truth, to understand this knowledge, to understand what we are, and to manifest balance in the world, ultimately, we have to have awareness. To manifest balance, we have to allow what we are at our core, which is we are infinite balance. We are infinite love. We are awareness, to flow through our mind and manifest in reality. That's how it's done. So if you look at awareness as synonymous with love, as synonymous with balance, you bring that energy through your mind into physical manifestation, into the world. And you can also say, I don't care who has a problem with this term or not, I don't care. You can also say using energy of God. It's the same thing. Using the energy of God to flow through you, it's really It's really allowing the energy of God to flow through you, and you are just a conduit for this energy. You are just a conduit for awareness. That's it. That's all it is. And so, and of course, my awareness deepened throughout the years, and it continues to deepen. But really, all it is you find words and how to articulate awareness, God's energy, truth, love, balance, freedom with words through mind, not with mind. Yes, you are using the mind, but you are ultimately using your awareness through mind fluently. It's like this, fluent. It's not circling around in the mind and then spot, spot. Nope. You're not conditioned anymore. We're not functioning from a place of conditioning, of rigidity, of constructs, of mental constructs, of only thoughts. You're in awareness. A thought pops up. You either feed it or you don't, because you are the observer. Oh, I don't want to create that in reality. I don't want to manifest that in my reality. I don't want to see that happen in the world, so I'm not going to feed that. Oh, this thought looks good about balance, about making this slideshow presentation, about writing a book, about writing in my journal, about reading a book, whatever, about doing something productive. I'm going to feed that thought. That's the thought that I'm going to feed. That's how you create balance in the world. That's how you create freedom in the world. That's how you manifest balance, love, harmony, everything we say we want in the world. It's by using awareness through the mind and allowing it to manifest in reality, allowing love to manifest itself in reality. We are just channels for that energy. To solve any problem, we must first become aware of the problem, not with the mind or with thought, but with awareness. Thought is only the movement of memory. This is a great definition for thought. Thought is only the movement of memory. Thought only functions in past and future. Thought can't happen now. As soon as you lose yourself in thought and you start going into thought land, you cease to be present psychologically. You can only be psychologically present. You can only be present by being in awareness. So thought is the movement of memory. It's not fresh. It's not new. That's where I think metaphors and stuff come into play, where it's like you're resurrecting the dead. I'm pretty sure resurrecting the dead or bringing the dead to life is a metaphor amongst other. There's other interpretations for this, but it's a metaphor for bringing thought to life, bringing thought into physical manifestation. Awareness transcends the mind. Awareness transcends the mind. Only by connecting into awareness can we really see what is happening within and around us. By observing the problem with pure awareness, the solution reveals itself. And I'm, throughout my journey here, throughout me teaching this knowledge and making videos and such, I will be so persistent in talking about this. The solution always lies within the problem itself. Always. The solution isn't separate from the problem. Always remember that, and always tap back into that when you start to find yourself trying to find a solution outside of the problem. It doesn't exist. It exists inside the problem itself. You have to go through the problem. That's why you have to go through hell to be purified by hell, to be able to harness the flame and to reach that heavenly state. And then here's a little artistic expression, expressing awareness, what we are, going through the mind, through thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. So awareness or consciousness through the mind, through our actions, our emotions, and our thoughts, and into physical manifestation. And then ultimately, we're not only this awareness, but we're this awareness too. We are the awareness that brings its own energy into physical manifestation, into reality, and we're also the observer of the awareness functioning and flowing through the mind, through the thought, the emotion, the action, through into reality. Again, this could be hard to understand, but don't try to figure it out with your mind. You just allow it to come into you, see it, contemplate it, ponder it. Ponderance and contemplation are not thought, are not thinking. For example, if you pause this presentation and you just looked at this image right here, you look at this image right here, you contemplate it by just looking at it and seeing it. And then you may be tapped on the shoulder. You may have an intuition, an insight. That's why it's called insight. You are seeing inside of yourself the answer, or realization. You might have a realization. You may be using your real eyes. You may realize something, like eyes, realize something about what this means. You have to allow this knowledge, this type of knowledge, to come to you. You don't rush after it. You don't force it. It's a process that has to come naturally and organically. You can't rush the process. So let me minimize this. And if you want to take a picture of this, or if you want to just look at it and pause the slide without my face being in this, go right ahead. All right, moving on. And here we go. So here we are, the awareness. You can look at this as being awareness as well, the different aspects of being. And here's, see the eyes behind this screen here? We have the awareness watching through the lens of balance, through the lens of harmony, through the lens of love and compassion and honesty and oneness and connection and all the things that we say we want. This is an image that depicts an embodiment of connection, of unity, of love, of compassion, of natural law, of being in alignment with natural law. But we see and we do not avoid seeing, and we do not neglect. We're not turned the other way. Like in the New Age community, they just turn the other way from this. They pretend like it's not happening at all. Therefore, they don't have true awareness. They're not truly enlightened. They're not truly awake. You have to see it for what it is and understand that this is a completely unnatural state of being. This is a completely chaotic, unnatural state of being. We live in this to manifest this on the other side as well. We live this to manifest this. So in order to manifest this, we have to come from this place and not refuse and not look away from this, but come from this place to create this. It's the only way. The only way is to understand that this is our inherent birthright. This is what we came here to establish. This is our most natural state of being, connection, compassion, love, all the things we say we want, all the things that our basic needs, connection, to love one another, to grow, to evolve in consciousness. We're here to evolve in consciousness and help others do the same. So we have to see this for what it is, dissipate it with our awareness, dissipate it with our actions, dissipate it by spreading the truth wherever we can, understanding this knowledge, understanding our sovereignty, and freeing ourselves. And then we can free others and free the world. The time is now. The time to really look at ourselves, understand natural law, and live in freedom is right now. No more time do we have to fool around, only living to gain more pleasure, status, titles, money, attention, just to fill the abyss, the void in the center of our beings. There are individuals in this world who will never get it. They will endlessly sleepwalk through their days, riding the Ouroboros of suffering for eternity. They have made the choice to sell their souls unconsciously and have integrated themselves with the machine, the system, the control system. They have done exactly what the system seeks to do to every human being on the planet, but not us, not you, the ones who are watching this now. The silence of good people is more dangerous than the brutality of the bad people, said Martin Luther King Jr. The silence of us, the good people, is more dangerous than any order follower, any government, anything that anybody else can do. We need to stand up. We need to rise. We need to allow our voices to be heard. No more time to hide in the dark. No more time to hide in the shadows in our rooms, reading knowledge and everything else. Take your time in your progression. Take your time on your journey. But help other people, lift other people up along the way. People need to hear every single stage of the journey. People need to hear the vulnerable stages, the crying, the brutality, the rawness. We need to start getting more vulnerable. Let our voices be heard. The silence of good people is more dangerous than the brutality of bad people. It is time to let our voices be heard. We must use our precious gifts, our voices, to spread this knowledge. The time is now to speak the truth anywhere and everywhere possible. Wherever we go, we must be embodiments of truth, love, and freedom. We must live it. We must live it. We have to allow our light to shine and never allow anything or anyone to put this light out. We are here to live connected with one another, with life, and to evolve and grow in consciousness. And we are connected with one another, regardless if we believe in it or not. We are always connected to one another and with life. We are life. We are here to evolve and grow in consciousness. We are here to have real conversations and express real communication. We are here to see one another, to help one another, and to love one another. Before we can, we must see, help, and love ourselves always. If we must die, we die defending our rights, said Sitting Bull. If we must die, we die defending our rights. We know that there's more to this than just this little physical experience, this small, fragment of a time, this tiny frame of time, this tiny time slot that we have to live on Earth right now. There's so much more than this at stake here. There's so much more than this. We must understand and face death. We must live and die to each moment, living as if this moment is our last. We must die to our old selves, our old ways, habits, and conditioning to be rebirthed into a new, heightened understanding of ourselves and reality. We must be willing to do whatever it takes to defend our natural rights, even if that means injury or death to our physical bodies. As long as freedom lives, it will never die. Also, in order to live, we must know how to die psychologically to our old beliefs, our old selves, our old ways, our old thought patterns, our old habits. We have to die to ourselves and allow ourselves to be rebirthed into our highest version of ourselves, who we actually are, which is beyond words, beyond identities, beyond labels. We are everything and we are no thing. We have to die and be rebirthed into that process and understanding that, what we are. We have to allow the truth to kill what we once thought we knew and were. This is a nonstop process. This takes a passion which stems from a deep understanding and integration of the knowledge I presented here today, an understanding of who we are, which is infinite awareness, and how reality works through natural law. This passion is awakened naturally. No one can try to express passion. True passion blossoms out of being in alignment with truth and being fully and deeply connected to ourselves and everything around us. Passion, you can't fake passion. You can't artificially induce passion. You can't just try to be passionate. You can try, but you'll sound like an idiot. Passion stems from who you are at your core. Passion comes from allowing yourself to die in truth. Passion stems from living in freedom and feeling the suffering and the pain of beings in this world. Passion comes from feeling. Ultimately, passion comes from feeling. Feeling since you're so connected to everything that you feel the suffering and the cries of the earth and the cries of your fellow man, the cries of your fellow human being in the animal kingdom and beyond. And you're sensitive to that energy. That's where that passion comes from. And it also comes from anger, being sad, and then transmuting sadness into anger, and then transmuting anger into healing energy to express outwards, to help other people, to light the flame of passion within their souls. We got to dissolve the mask that we've been wearing. And I'm not talking about the physical mask. I'm talking about the persona that we've been pretending to be for so long. The fake self we've been portraying for everybody in day-to-day life. You know how many times I hear when I go to grocery stores, when I go to the local supermarkets or whatever, and I hear, "How are you?" "I'm good." "How are you?" "I'm good." None of you are good. Don't tell me you're good. You're not good. You're faking it. You've been trained to say you're good. We got to take off these masks and get raw and get vulnerable and get down to business and understand who we are and do the shadow work and cry and get vulnerable and allow ourselves to be human beings. And this takes purging. It's a purge. It's a purging process. We got to go through purgatory. We got to eliminate those false belief systems. We got to allow those false belief systems to dissolve. We have to understand that we've been wrong. We have to understand and face the reality of what is happening inside of us. We can't align ourselves with natural law and who we are and establish that connection to who we are in awareness without being aware of the demons that lie inside of us, in our unconscious, deeply embedded in our unconscious. We have to purge these programs and take as long as we need to do so, and lift other people up and help other people along the way. Ultimately, the most important takeaway from this entire presentation is the fact that freedom and natural law must be understood and integrated by you so you can free yourself. Because ultimately, you're here to free yourself. To me, the pinnacle of our existence is to free ourselves and assist others to do the same. I do this work for no one else but myself, which is you and which is all. And I know that. That's not my opinion. That's not my belief. I am you. I am here to remind you of who you are. Therefore, you are you to remind you of who you are. You're staring in a mirror right now. We are each other on a soul level. We're here to remind one another who we are. External freedom is impossible in the current state we are in. We need to focus on living in a state of freedom ourselves and living in harmony with life and nature by living in harmony with her laws, nature's laws, natural law. This is what we are here to do. We are not here to burn out by excessively trying to wake others up. This will destroy us. We're not here to free others. We're not here to free each other's minds. We're not here to constantly struggle and, do whatever it takes to help people. No, we're here to help ourselves. Remain helping yourself. And that will inevitably breed you spreading your light around. But do it for yourself because you are all. You don't have to try to help other people. That is thinking in terms of separation. You don't try to help others. There is no others. There is only you. Help yourself. It happens naturally. And be patient. You have to be patient with yourself. You got to go through the process of learning, of growing, and of understanding. You have to go through that process. Be patient. Don't rush it. We are here for ourselves, capital S, self, which is not a self. There is no self. I'm just using this word to relay a message. We are here for ourselves, all those who are really willing to help themselves and embody who they have come here to be. And here's the quote we've heard a million times, but you cannot say it enough. You cannot understand it and say it enough. I don't care what you think about this man. I don't care what you think about the quote. You have to be the change you want to see on earth. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. You have to be the change you want to see in the world. You have to emit. You have to radiate freedom. You have to radiate beingness, awareness, love, light, compassion. You have to radiate this connection. You have to live it in every single moment. Not fixate on what other people are doing, not fixate on government, not fixate on other things, problems in the world, not fixate on helping other people, not fixate on helping free the minds of others. You have to constantly be the change. Set the example. Love yourself. Understand yourself. You have to be present and live in alignment with truth and natural law in every single moment to establish freedom in the world. This is what we have to understand. You don't come across some knowledge, a couple books. You don't just watch this presentation and then start just producing massive amounts of work and start fixating on helping people. No, you keep going. It's a constant process. You're constant right in the center of that bell curve of teacher and student. You are both in every single moment. I'm learning so much by teaching this right now. And as I'm teaching, I am learning and growing inside of myself because I'm watching myself as I do this with awareness. I am the awareness that moves the hand. I am the awareness that watches the language, the communication, the vocalization of words, of energy, of frequency, of vibration. So we have to be the change that we want to see happen in the world. Oh, Lawrence, that's just a beat down quote that it's just been abused. No, this is true. This is an inherent truth. You have to be the change that you want to see manifest in the world, not just for a day, not just for a week, not just for a year. 24/7, you have to be the change that you want to see on the planet. We have to live in alignment with awareness. We have to reconnect. We have to reconnect with who we are. We have to reconnect to our spirits. We have to reestablish and repurpose and re-put together and allow our souls to come back to us. If you look at the soul as the mediary component between the spirit and physical, and the mind and the physical realm, the soul, most people have sold their souls. Their hoses are kinked. We have to open up so the flow of awareness can flow through us fluently, so we can help other people, so we can really be of use in this world. True use. We have to care. We have to align ourselves with natural law principles. Natural law principles are a master key. They constitute a master key to getting or establishing any state of being or state of existence that you wish to see in the world. You have to understand natural law deeply within yourself. You cannot be cut off from who you are and create freedom. You cannot do it. And we have to carry the fire to one another. We have to reignite the flame of passion, of awareness, of love, of truth in other people's hearts by being the lighthouse ourselves, by being that torch ourselves. And other people are just like, oh, I need that. I want some of that. I want some of that. I want some of that. Just allowing this energy to just shake the world and shake off all the shit that doesn't belong, to shake off all the muck and all the slime and all the dirt and all the grime that's been covering up our consciousness for so long. We have to share with one another. We have to care about one another, really care about one another. What does it mean to care? You have to be able to define care. You have to be able to define this within yourself, not with words, with knowing, with understanding, with feeling. We have to care about one another, our earth, this planet, the universe, our place in the universe. And then we can break the chains which tether the world. We can break the chains which imprison the planet currently. We can start to break the chains. The more we care about ourselves, the more we're in alignment with natural law, the more we've allowed the truth to dismantle and destroy our old self and our own belief systems and anything and everything that's not serving us anymore, the more the chains will dissolve and disintegrate. Thank you for staying through this presentation. I hope you got a lot out of it. I greatly appreciate you. I greatly appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.